and we have some cool stuff to show off. Yeah, I just realized that using the GoPro means that you can see the colossal mess that I have for a workbench, and I'm not sure that's really good for business. But the reality is we build an awful lot of trucks over here. Today is one of those days where a lot of that sort of stuff started happening, and we worked quite a bit on the Delta Blazer right here. So that's kind of what I'm going to show off today, and we got the power system in. Here's a link of where the power system boxes look like, what the stuff is. You can check out the specs. This is a 1750 kV unit, as you'll see, and well, take a look. So here's the lid off. Basically, I don't know if I actually showed this or not on the YouTube already, but these are available on Shapeways already on our store. So that's GCM Racing store on Shapeways. There's side trays mounted, ready for the Blazer, both sides. There's front inner fenders. There's a front bumper mount and servo mount, and this actually accepts the stock Blazer bumper, so like it doesn't get any easier than that. It also is required to get a new servo mount up here if you want to run a 454 from Dion, okay? Which is scale designs by Mr. Comedy. So his 454 will actually fit in here with this servo relocation front mount, bumper mount setup that's available on Shapeways. This part I don't think is available for home print because of the complexities of it, and it's required for strength. But I'm pretty sure that the rest of this stuff is all available for home print because we make those available for free on Shapeways. Now this is the battery tray and the battery cover, which you can see comes out the bottom, just like that. And so that is also available on Shapeways. They're also pretty complex parts that wouldn't do very well as a home print. And because of that, we don't have them available, I don't think, as a home print option. But anyway, those are available. That's got a rear bumper mount in it as well. So this stock stuff just goes right in there. You know, clickety-boo. And then you can bolt the body on. The other thing that we did is on the sides here, we put these two set screws in here. And these two set screws actually allow the body to clip on. So the body sits on this ledge here. You can see it. It sits right on this ledge right there. But also, there's set screws that actually pin the body right in. So that's really, really cool. Very, very strong mounting. Works fantastic. So the HobbyWing ESC, I actually took the fan unit off of it. And then because I'm never going to need it, this thing is barely ever going to run any sort of, high heat whatsoever. It's a crawling truck. I'm going to use this for, scale competition crawling kind of thing. I added the XT60 connector on it. That's what I'm using for batteries in this. The battery tray, of course, sits in the back, so tons of space for that to drop in. And what I did with this HobbyWing, I wanted it super flat. You can see how flat it is here. It's like pretty much when it's upside down without the fan, you can see the heat sinks there, but without the fan, it's basically the level of the frame. So once I put my center interior tunnel on here, which I'm 3D printing right now, along with a pair of seats, then I'll be able to just, cover this over with a nice piece of black felt. That will be the full interior, floor, pan, carpeting, everything's there. Everything's super flat. You can see here, this is barely the height of the frame. And then way behind the T-case is where the front of the speed control is. And then all my wiring's flat on the floor here. My receiver's down here. I conformal coated it, or actually corrosion X'd it, so it's ready to go in the water. The switch is already waterproof that comes with the HobbyWing. The motor is supposed to be waterproofed already, so boom. The transmission has an epic amount of grease in it. These 20 kg Power HD servos that I keep using, they say they're not waterproof, but that's because the board is not yet corrosion X'd or conformal coated. And I'll just pull out the 4 screws there, dunk it, and then put it back in, and that'll be that. So I don't really intend on driving this thing in the swamp or anything, but it's nice to have the coverage because you just never know when you fall off a cliff or something. That's pretty important. Now, you might have seen this in the body, but I raised the dash. This is a super popular mod. Raising the dash either requires 2 new holes in the firewall to lift it up, or you can get an adapter bracket that comes from Scale Designs by Mr. Comedy and probably lots of other people as well. I'm talking about Mr. Comedy prints a lot and designs because he's in Canada here, so for me that's really easy. And go Canada. So there's the truck. I'm really liking these tires here. I'm very impressed with the grip that they offer. They run really nice. I'm not really sure yet if I'm satisfied with the spring setup or not. It's just got a single leaf in the back. I did not put the traction bar on it to eliminate the torque twist or anything, or on the top yet, so I have one or the other that I can add directly from the Delta kit, and then continue to use the leaf spring, but I can get rid of all the torque twists. So I still have to do some experimenting with that and actually see how that's going. I kind of need to find out, whether the truck needs it or not, because I'm not quite sure yet. But for now, I left it off, and I only have a single leaf on here, which means it's really flexy and nice. Of course, in the front, it's got the coilovers, and the coilovers allow you to have just a really nice, smooth front suspension. We'll get in there so you can see that. Super easy. I home printed these fenders and the floors, so that's why you see this, black home print style ABS. These are also available in a Shapeways print if you really want a nylon, but they're just as good as a home print. And anyway, I set up this board here, and I want to show you a little bit of a test. I kind of fiddled with this thing, and I want to show you kind of on an incline, on a plane, how I set up the drag brake and stuff, so you can see, if it's got a nice enough drag brake, if it's smooth enough on the throttle, and we'll talk a little bit about radio and ESC settings. All right, so we're starting off with a 0. This is kind of important. There we go. Why did it make that sound? Oh, I guess when it gets to 0, it makes a sound. So we're at 0. I want to show you that this is 47.5 degrees right here. And then as you go up, there's a bit of an arc in the thing, and so it gets up to 49, a couple degrees more. Just so you know where we're at with this. Now we're going to drive it, and then I want you to see, basically, the whole point is to see, how does the brushless system work without having a sensor wire, and, how does it process the revolutions and stuff. And being a 6-pole with a 9-slot rotor, you have options. Like, it works really well. So, anyways, I'm going to just get this going on here. it certainly likes to be loaded, which is great. Now the way that I have my drag brake set up, my drag brake is set up for a lot more flat ground than this, so my drag brake is a little bit light for a hill that's this high. You know, it's not insane, but it's definitely, if you were gonna be on hills like this a lot, you would put more drag brake on it for sure. So the whole point of the demonstration is not to show you my truck will go up 58 degrees, 48 degrees, but to show you that the brushless system has no problem with the pressure, you know. And it's pretty cool, man. So I guess this is also a testament to the Delta chassis and the geometries on the Delta chassis. It doesn't do a wheel lift or anything. It's got a really flat geometry. Drives super great. So anyway, there's my hill climb. That's really the whole point, was just to show you that the system is super smooth, it's quiet, it works great. And alongside that, I'm just using a really simple radio. So this is a basic 3-channel tactic. Like, there's no controls here for adjusting your throttle curve or any of that stuff. So I just pull the trigger and I drive, you know, and that's it. And I'm not, you know, I'm not doing anything fancy. That's just regular driving. So I'm really happy with the way that this works. I think the thing is fantastic. So it's definitely going to be nice enough for all of my crawling. I may have to add a little drag brake in. I set the drag brake when I was running it without the body. So with the body on it, it definitely could use a little bit extra drag brake, and that's pretty easy to change in the programming. There's a couple of cool things you can do with this. You can, on the programming card, you can set it up to have all kinds of different settings, and you know what the manual says is not quite how I did it, but I'll explain that. So here's the program list from the actual ESC info, and they tell you that you can go through the whole programming by using the set button that comes with the ESC switch. There's a whole bunch of ways to get through those menus. I find that super annoying. So what I'm actually using is the HobbyWing 1080 programming card. Now this HobbyWing programming card works for the brushed 1080 ESCs, and it's got 15 different selections of options here. And then you basically, when you plug it in, it tells you the item number that you're working with, and then whatever the set value is that you're using. So for instance, on this programming card, number 1 is the running mode, which is either forward brake or forward reverse brake, or forward and reverse, which is sort of the crawling mode. So that's the setting for that. And then number 2 setting on this programming card is LiPo or nickel metal batteries. And you'll notice here that that's not the case. So, because this programming card is actually meant for the 1080 brushed ESC. But they tell you you can use a programming card to do it because the software actually works the same way. Except that in this ESC, the brushless 1060, the first one is a running mode again, that's cool. But the second one isn't the LiPo mode. The second one is actually the drag brake, right? So when you plug this in to the 1060 brushless, what you end up getting is the item number from here, and then you get the value from here. So ignore what this says. The card works exactly the same way. It's super easy. You just plug it right into the fan port. This thing here at the other end just plugs directly into the fan port on the 1060. So you don't have to do any like additional, you know, you don't need anything else. If you have a 1080 programming card, you can just use that. And then I went through all these settings here, and the ones that I came up with that seemed to work the best for me, I actually wrote down on the side of my card because I put a new sticker on it so that I know for the next programming setup what I've used. I'm I'm using the forward and braking option for number 1, which is basically just crawl mode. And crawl mode is going to be, you know, obviously the thing that I go to. I don't want to have to double trigger my reverse all the time to change my braking, to get my braking to come on. So mode 3. On the second one, my drag brake force, I use the fourth option, which is fourth value, which is 20%. And the reason I did that is because after a whole bunch of experimentation, the drag brake force and then the max braking force that this ESC is using, there's 2 different ones. And then there's an initial brake force. And so between all 3, I fiddled around with all the different values on here so I could actually get it to kind of have a gentle coast when it was slowing down instead of just immediately locking up. If you put the drag brake on too high on this value, then what happens is as soon as you let off the throttle, it does a full lockup. I mean, like complete lockup. I even set it up to like 60% and I still got an instantaneous full lockup on it. So I have my drag brake force value down to 20% on this number 2 value. And the 20% gives me a pretty gentle rollout. Like when you're, actually I'll show you. So this is at 20% of the initial, of the drag brake value. So it doesn't roll. Right? You have to push it pretty hard to make it roll at all. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. When I'm coming down off the rocks and stuff, and I don't have an angle that's like 49 degrees. I want to come off the rocks and then just kind of have it really gently come down, and that's going to be like a 20% value on this particular programming card. Okay? So my drag brake force is set up at 20%. On the third is the low voltage cutoff. That's your own preference. The punch mode, I fiddled with this too, and I set the punch mode on the 4th value, which is level 4. The punch value is the amount of speed that you'll get on the first trigger hit. So what I've done is I've actually softened my trigger hit using the ESC programming. So when I pull the throttle, instead of it going just instant burnout, when I pull the throttle, it actually kind of ramps up the throttle, so it's a really smooth, nice ramp. I used level 4 for that, and the factory setting is expected to be number 5. So what that also does is it makes your battery last forever, because if you get rid of that really punchy hit at the beginning, you're getting rid of it in reverse, which makes reverse a lot smoother. You're getting rid of it at throttle, which makes your initial takeoff a lot smoother. And your battery will last forever because you're not getting that high amp draw when you first hit the... You can punch it all you want, and you don't get that high amp draw. This is actually kind of like a current regulator is really what it is. Number 5, the 5th value is the maximum braking force. And what I did with this, number 5, is I actually set it at 100%. So I tried 25, I tried 50, I tried 75, I tried 100%, and then it has a disable option, which allows it to just get rid of all of the setting here, and then it would automatically adopt the drag brake force as the maximum braking. So because I set the maximum braking here at the 4th option, which is 100%, what I've actually done is I've allowed my drag brake to have a curve too. So when you put it into neutral, it starts off at 20%, and then it as the truck goes faster, it applies more brakes. Because it's brushless, right? It can sense the armature turning. Even though it doesn't have a sensor, it can actually still, it's following the rotor rotations. So I set that at 100%, so basically the truck will never have a runaway. It'll go down quick on a more steep incline, but it'll never actually run away. So that's why I did that. I played with this a lot, and then I came up with this as the best option. Number 6 is the reverse speed that you want. Number 7, initial braking force. So what I did is I set this initial brake force to the option number 2, which is 0. Okay, so the initial brake force, if you set it at option 1, it basically is whatever your drag brake is. So when you first touch the brakes, if you have it like a car kind of ESC where when you do reverse, you actually get brakes first. If that's the setup that you actually are using at the time, then your initial brake force is that curve. And because I'm not using it like that, I'm just using it in crawl mode, I set this to 0. Neutral throttle range, that's the neutral band, is number 8, and then number 9 is the ignition timing on the motor. The initial timing is, your motor timing is actually supposed to match the poles. You're supposed to have 4 degrees per pole. If I did 4 degrees per pole and it's a 6 pole, then I'd have 24 degrees of timing. That's not even an option on the list here. And that would be maximum efficiency for the motor, but it would also make it super jumpy. Okay? So brushless motors are expected to have timing in them when you set them up on the speed control. And because this is a generic, brushless speed control, it could be any motor. They don't know what motor you have. So I set it to 0. And the reason I did that is because I don't care about the motor efficiency. I care about the rotor turning at the smoothest possible amount. So I set it to 0. I've done this on all of my crawl brushless motors. I've tried all these different ones as well. I tried all the different modes, and the efficiency is not important to me. Brushless efficiency is at its peak expected RPM. So if you were running this thing in like a slash or something, then you would set this timing up to be efficient at its full RPM, at its running RPM, like much higher speed. And then you'd have efficiency in the motor. But I don't care about that at all. I don't care about speed, so I set it to 0, and that gives me a really smooth feel on the trigger. It's just fantastic. So I wrote my numbers here on the card, on the side, on a new sticker. I hope you guys can see that, and feel free to steal all my settings and then play with them from there if you really want to. This is the options that they give you, and all that to say you can use a 1080 or any programming card as long as you ignore the values on the card and actually use it just to set these, and it won't let you do something else. I mean, running mode number 1 only has 3 settings. When you try to set the values, you go next, next, next. There's only 3 values because it's using the ESC. It's not using whatever's here. It's using whatever's in the ESC. So that's the story. Pretty excited to have this thing running now. I'm going to get the interior done. I have the seats already printed, so that's going to be amazing. I'm working on that right now. Tunnel cover, carpeting, all that stuff. And we'll do another video shortly to show you what's happening with the interior and the engine layout. I've got a 3D printed motor to go in here, and we'll set up all the engine bay and all that stuff. That should be great. And for now, having a great time with the Delta Blazer. Thanks for watching. And if you have any interest in this video, please feel free to share it in your groups or add it to your favorites, and we'll keep you up to date on the Delta Blazer build. Bye-bye.